What is up guys, Andy Forrester, the Runner here. Welcome back to another video, and today I'm giving you guys my first impressions of the North Face SUMMIT VECTIV. So very excited to give you guys my thoughts on this carbon plated trail racing shoe. This was an absolute delight to run in when I tested it last week, and I can't wait to share my thoughts with you guys today on this shoe. So if you're excited for today's video guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and before I give you my first impressions, we'll dive in and give you a little bit of technical information. So I ended up going true to size in this shoe, although there is a recommendation to go up half a size. We'll talk about more of that in my first impressions. In terms of heel to toe drops, we're talking 32mm of stack in the heel, 26 in the forefoot, meaning we have a 6mm heel to toe drop. And in my UK size 13, it came in at 331 grams or 11.8 ounces. And there was always a work away from the heel counter area. Talk about the ankle collar, the tongue, the lace in the upper, the midsole, and move our attention to the outsole. So let's start back here. A good bit of structure with the carbon plate coming up the back here. It's a winged carbon plate, we'll talk about that shortly, but it comes up the back providing like a heel cut basically to lock your heel in place. And we've basically got some structure underneath this upper up until about, I'd say, where your heel bone sits. Past there, it's very flexible but very cushioned as well. So obviously what we're going to think here, it's a racing shoe, so we need some structure, especially on the trails for stability, but at the same time looking to shave as much weight as possible. So it's enough structure there to lock the foot in and some nice comfort up around the top, with this bumper padding which sits underneath the ankle bones on either side and up the back here, and the cut here sits nicely under the ankle bone. So very happy with the back of the shoe. In terms of the tongue, I'd say it's a medium plush tongue. It's not paper thin, but it's got a little bit of cushion to it, but it's obviously not super thick, enough to protect the top of the foot and feel really comfortable. And it is gusseted, meaning it's attached to the medial and lateral sides of the shoe, meaning it's attached left and right with some elastic either side of the tongue to hold it in place. Stops the tongue sliding left and right. In terms of the lacing, a very standard lacing system, nothing fancy, nothing flash, and we have the extra eyelet chain here for you guys to do the runner's knot if you wish to. In terms of the laces, I was a bit skeptical of laces at first. I thought they were feeling a little bit cheap, I've got to be honest with you. But when I understood the design of them, they've got little nodules on them, little textured bumps. Basically, that's the best way I can describe it, so that when you cinch down, it almost provides as a locking action, so it locks into place and the laces don't slip. So I felt like from the start of the run to the end of the run, the foot was as locked down as it was from the start to the finish. So really happy with that. Overall, fantastic start there. We move our attention to the upper. It's kind of a plasticky material, but very breathable and very comfortable. From the midfoot section up to the forefoot, you can see there it is very breathable. Absolutely no extra structure, you can see right through it. Going to be a fantastic summer racing shoe. I think for the winter months your feet are going to get soaked, but having said that, I ran through a lot of puddles, made a point of going through the muddiest parts that I could. I have cleaned it up a bit for the review, but there's still a lot of mud on there. And I felt like the water exited the shoe as fast as it went in. There is a bit of structure around the front here to stop your toes from hitting, well, not to stop your toes from hitting rocks, but to stop you from stubbing your toe. And of course at the back here, there's a bit more overlays around this back section and some laminations here of the logo and the model of the shoe. But overall, this front section is very breathable. In terms of the midsole, this was a bit of a gem, I have to be honest with you. That perfect sweet spot between super soft and super firm, it sat right in the middle. Bit of a rocker geometry going on at the front here. It really does feel like you're stepping off a curb, really does make you want to move fast, and the plate really helps with that as well. It's got a full length full length midsole and a full length carbon plate, forked carbon plate I might add. And obviously, as I said, it comes up the back here. It's got wings that you can see coming here, and see these little sections at the top here and here. Basically, it provides stability and structure in the shoe because you're out on technical terrain. You want to be able to feel like you're supported. I've taken normal carbon-plated road racers out on the trails, landed on a rock, and the whole thing has buckled and my ankles rolled. It's a horrific feeling. You just don't get that in this. The forked carbon plate means you've got a bit more flexibility in the forefoot. And so you can go over that rocky technical terrain, but also with the fact that it spreads the width of the shoe at the front here and then going up the back, it just provides some really good structure. So really happy with this midsole, really happy with the plate. It felt so smooth. And then we turn our attention to the outsole. We have some rubber outsole here with 3.5mm lugs. So as you can gather from that depth of lugs, you're not going to be racing through thick mud in this shoe. It's just not going to handle that sort of thing. You want mud claws and stuff like that for that. This is for what I would say lighter trails, technical trails, absolutely, but lighter trails, not deep, thick mud. It's going to hold you really well. What I was running on when I tested this shoe, it handled it so well and it was so grippy and it just felt really, really good. So that's it for the tech. So let's dive into my first impressions. How did I find this shoe? I flipping loved it. I'm going to explain why I love this shoe so much. But first, a very quick disclaimer. This is a pair of shoes that have been sent to me by the North Face, Pro Direct Running and Gifter, a combined force in promotion for this new suite of pro trail running shoes. However, they have no control over this video. They have no editorial control. They won't see this video and they won't hear my thoughts before I share it here on YouTube. And I'm not obliged to say anything. I'm just going to give you the facts on this shoe, which is this is an exciting one. So with that out of the way, let me share with you how I used it, how I intend to use it, and how it's basically going to be my new trail racing shoe. So I took this thing out last Friday for a 75-minute steady run out there on the trails, and I moved a little bit quicker than I anticipated. So what I tend to, if you've been following the marathon training series, you'll understand my Friday runs are steady, but I class them as light steady. So I don't push as hard as my normal steady runs. I just tick over nicely, but I ended up basically running the same pace as my normal steady runs in this shoe. And for me and for any of you guys out there who run like myself, mainly on the trails, but I race on the roads, but have trails like fire track trails and some technical trails, but not deep, thick mud, as I said earlier, that you run on a lot, this is going to be a fantastic option. Now, obviously, this is a racing shoe. Let's put that out there, and this will be my trail racing shoe as well. And I'm excited to race it in this shoe. I'm going to have some trail races, or at least one trail race in the summer that I'll be testing this out on. But I have to say, with carbon plates and trails, I've always been a little bit skeptical, considering I always roll my ankle when I'm out there with carbon plated shoes on some of the trails. But this just completely dispels it. I think the forked carbon plate and the design of this shoe means that there's a lot more flexibility, so that if you do land on a rock, you don't have that instant kind of like, oh, it's a solid plate, I'm going to roll left or right depending on where the pressure is. It just kind of basically spreads the load in the shoe, and it means that you don't get that rocking sensation. The flexibility and the forks in the carbon plate just work really, really well. So it gave me confidence to run pretty darn quickly and feel pretty darn good out there. That combined with the midsole, which I have to say, I've looked on the North Face website, I can't find any real technical information on the midsole, but it is lovely and comfortable and soft, and you really move, and this is what you want in a racing shoe. I don't find that I work particularly well with super soft midsoles, and I find that also works against you on the trails. I feel like you need a little bit of firmness, a bit of propulsion. That combined with a plate just means you move so well in the shoe. So it does sit slap bang in the middle. And in terms of the usage, I mean, I'm going to basically be using this. I'm recording this on Monday. I'm going to be using this for my Tuesday 90-minute steady out on the trails. I'm going to use it a bit on the roads and then on the trails. It's a good mix and match shoe as well. So if you're doing trail races and you've got a bit of road in there, as well as trail, don't hesitate. This is not going to be a bad option. I did about a mile or two of road in amongst that 75-minute steady run, and it was fine. It handled it perfectly, and it didn't feel out of place, and the lugs didn't feel uncomfortable. It just glides. I think they're onto something with this shoe. This is really good. Now, I didn't try the previous version. I've had a few messages on Instagram since posting photos about this, and they said, oh, I had the previous version, it wasn't particularly that good. Can you talk about the improvements? Sadly, I can't sort of elaborate on how it's improved from the previous version, but what I will say is from what I gather, it's a big improvement from the previous version. So I just kind of feel the massive selling point in this shoe is if you like to move fast on the trails, if you do trail workouts as well as races, don't look any further. This is fantastic. I was nearly going to use this for my long run, but I know that I needed to get quite specific at the moment, and so that I need to do a lot on the roads, so I ended up choosing a road shoe. But I wouldn't hesitate to run long in this shoe, nor do stuff in a marathon pace or above. I really do feel like this thing can go quick. So in terms of how I use it, it's definitely like moderate pace, easy it can do, I should think, but for me, moderate pace and marathon pace will be this thing's sweet spot. And then definitely it could go a bit faster, like half marathon pace. You could probably push it to 10k pace, but I feel what I'm trying to say is if you've got long runs out on the trails where you've got tempo efforts in the middle, this will be absolutely ideal. Or if you're just running steady or whatever it is, this is going to be a good one. Now, for the price point, £225 is a racing shoe, but I wouldn't hesitate to add this for a workout shoe as well as a racing shoe. It's going to have multitude of uses, and for me, that's exactly what it's going to get. This is going to get a lot of miles. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be putting a lot of miles in this shoe. So that is my first impressions of this thing. It's going to get a summer trail race in it at some point, and it's going to get plenty more training miles in there. If you follow me on Strava, you'll be able to see my shoe choices. You'll be able to see when I use it, and as I said, hopefully I'll be using it tomorrow for my 90-minute steady run. If you've got any more questions about this shoe, please don't hesitate to drop them below. As I said, breathability, fantastic. Comfort and lockdown, fantastic. Midsole, brilliant. Outsole, perfect grip for the trails that I run on, and I'd love to hear if you are interested in this shoe. So that's it from me on my first impressions of the North Face SUMMIT VECTIV. What a shoe, absolutely brilliant, and I'd love to hear if you guys have picked one of these up or are thinking about picking one of these up. That's it for today. As I said, any more questions, drop them in the comments below. Other than that, if you enjoyed the video, please do consider giving it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Until then.